way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
How's it going, Dylan?
My God. It's great. It's going so good, bro.
It is?
Yeah. I should have retired sooner. Everything just feels good, you know?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. This is your retirement weekend.
It's my retirement weekend.
Congratulations.
I think everybody should have one.
Enjoy your 3 days.
Yeah. So don't ask me to drive anywhere fast because it's not happening because I have all day.
That's fine because
nowhere to be.
None of the tourists in town, they don't go above 15. So you're perfect. You're fine.
No need for an alarm. You don't have to know where your phone's at when you go to sleep because you're just going to wake up when you wake up.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Yes, you are.
And we're back, baby.
Yeah, I had a little hiatus. To straighten some things out.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been in a transitional phase in our life. And here we are. We're back. We needed a little breath. And we got a bunch of stories to tell.
Dylan, we have a true crime case today. I bet you've never heard of this guy.
And that's what you were telling me.
He's a real shitbird.
Oh, my God. I can't wait to meet him.
You're just going to be cackling all over the room because he's a shitbird.
Is this the blind date? You're trying to set me up with this guy because it's not sounding good.
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
I hear he's single and ready to mingle in prison.
Nice.
Yeah. Are you ready?
I'm excited.
No dilly-dallying. Let's get straight to it.
So let's just jump straight in.
Yeah. Jump in the line. Rock your body in time.
Oh, no. I believe you. Is that what he says?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You've karaoke'd the Banana Boat song. How do you not know? Where's that the Tally Man, Tally Me Banana?
No,
That's a different one, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, this is
okay.
I'm
sorry, I don't know my Harry Belafonte.
Rock your body fine. Work.
That's not the lyrics.
Sonora.
It's not the lyrics. Okay, enough. On with the show. Born November 28th, 1944 in
Oh my God.
West Mohanoy City, Pennsylvania.
I'm sure that's exactly right.
Was Timothy Wayne McBride. His parents were Fern Yost and Charles McBride, a World War II Marine, who abandoned the family shortly after Timothy's birth. Timothy had what we could say is an unstable childhood, Dylan.
Okay. It's starting out strong.
His mother moved about a dozen times while he was a young boy and went on to have 2 other sons by different men.
That always helps.
When Timothy was 6 years old, he first had a brush with the law when he was caught stealing a bicycle. This was in 1951. 2 years later, his mother married Timothy Kracjir, who adopted Timothy. Around this time, he would be 8 years old. Timothy started exhibiting deviant behaviors at around the same age.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, an 8-year-old. I mean, that's pretty young.
Lots of stuff horror movies are made out of, and the reason it
to be discovering these certain things, you know.
The reason it freaks you out with a kid killer like that is because it's very, I would say, unnatural, right?
Well, he started fondling women in public.
At 8.
Peeping, committing burglaries, and wearing women's clothing. In secret, of course. By the time he was a teenager, he got busted once more for petty theft, but was let go after paying a $20 restitution. Timothy's childhood was rife with negligence. I was teetering on neglect and negligence.
Which is not a laughing matter.
Negligence. His mother was cold and unaffectionate. She often walked around the house in negligees or other inappropriate clothing, meaning like her underwear, her bras.
So he had a cold, scantily clad mother.
Yes.
Okay, that's a combination. Yeah.
Timothy would later say he found this sexually stimulating, but he also hated his mother.
Because she's cold and scantily clad. I mean, it really makes sense.
Doesn't?
Yeah.
Timothy attended Email High School outside of Allentown, but he didn't graduate. Instead, he joined the United States Navy Reserve in 1962 and headed to Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp training. He spent only a short period in the Navy, Dylan. During that time, he met 17-year-old Barbara Coase, who became pregnant with his child. They married, but Barbara continued living with her parents. So they never actually cohabitated together as a married couple.
Hey, that's a different kind of way of trying it.
In May of 1963, Timothy was arrested for attempted rape and was in jail 3 weeks later when his daughter Charlotte was born. He pled guilty to raping Joan Terrell in North Chicago and also the rape and stabbing of Joyce Erdel in Waukegan, Illinois. A judge sentenced him to 25 years to 50 years in prison. So minimum 25 years, maximum of 50.
Wow.
In Joliet Prison in Illinois, which I've heard a lot about. Like, I think it's a pretty harsh prison.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the Illinois prison system as a whole is it's not an easy thing. I mean, they're kind of notoriously rough.
He was also dishonorably discharged from the military. During the interrogation, Timothy had given law enforcement information regarding at least 6 home burglaries that he had done while living in Wescosville, Pennsylvania. In 1969, Timothy was transferred to Menard Correctional Center, where he enrolled in college courses with Southern Illinois University. He was transferred again in 1972 to the Vienna Correctional Center, where he was able to earn an associate's degree from Shawnee Community College. He was allowed in 1974 to begin working as an inmate emergency medical technician at the Cairo Padco Community Hospital. He was also allowed to work as an inmate EMT at the Union County Hospital.
Well, damn.
Now, how would you feel about having an inmate EMT? Would that be a little scary for you? Especially a guy who's been convicted of violent crime, like sexual assault?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd be comfortable because, coming along with the work of a paramedic, oftentimes they cut your clothes off and this and that, I may be a little bit uncomfortable with that.
It would make me feel uncomfortable.
It wouldn't be okay for you? What if they had a heart of gold?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't think so. After serving, he's not the damn flying nun. I mean, come on. After serving 13 years, Timothy was released. So early release.
So he didn't even do the 25 minimum.
Didn't even do the 25 minimum.
Okay.
Timothy moved to Carbondale and began taking more classes at Southern Illinois University in psychology and criminal justice. The Jackson County Ambulance Service offered him a position as a driver.
Yeah, because he has all this experience touching patients as an inmate.
Even with his criminal record, he is allowed to be an EMT and an ambulance driver.
Well, people will be like, look, he's a creep. You can't leave him around like your daughters and shit, but he can drive the hell out of an ambulance.
Securing a rental trailer in Carbondale, Timothy assumed a quiet life of work and school. Most people who knew him at the time described him as quiet, gentle, and a sweet guy.
A heart of gold.
By July of 1978, Timothy was released from parole, but in a few months, he would be back in jail charged with public indecency in a Walmart parking lot. This case was dismissed. A few months after that, in January of 1979, he was arrested again. This time, Timothy had been engaging in sex with his 13-year-old landlord's daughter.
That's not engaging in sex. It's child rape.
Exactly.
He raped this child that was 13.
He did.
Yeah, I think syntax means everything. Is that right?
He groomed her and assaulted her.
Yes.
The sister of his victim had witnessed one of the assaults. So having an eyewitness coupled with the young girl admitting that she had been involved in this, quote unquote relationship with this man.
This guy who should have still been in jail serving his 25-year minimum.
Yeah.
Right? So now he's attacked a 13-year-old.
The landlord, his name was Robert Grove, had split from his wife in 1976, and she basically skipped town, moved out, and left him with the children. but he worked very long hours and was not often around. The girls were left unsupervised for extended periods of time. The teenage girls started spending time with this new tenant who had moved into the trailer out back, especially the 13-year-old Maria. Timothy groomed the young girl who was discussing physical abuse at the hands of her father with him. So she was confiding into this adult male that her father had been physically abusive with her.
Oh, my God. And he's just a sexual predator.
Yes.
And he can't wait to get his hands on her.
According to her sister, Maria was enamored with Timothy and grew incredibly jealous of his involvements with other older women.
See, this is why teenage crush thing, it happens, you might get that energy from a younger person. You got to shut that down because you don't want them to be confused and they're all in their little hormones is running around and all this mess. You can't have any of that.
Yeah, you'll end up that Alicia Silverstone movie.
Just like that, Crush.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was very scary in that. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so intense. But no, you can't have any of that. And there's got to be clear lines. But obviously this is a monster, a predator.
He's a piece of shit.
And he's just waiting to move somewhere and get his hands on his child who, mom's working all the time.
When Timothy tried to kiss and fondle the younger sister, she confided in her mother, who called the police. It was discovered that Timothy had been sexually assaulting Maria for nearly 2 years at this point. Their mother was eventually granted full custody and moved the girls to Texas.
Well, thank God. I don't know what else the future held for those girls, but they certainly needed to be the hell away from where this happened.
I didn't mention it in the story, Dylan, but in the book, there was a brief paragraph about the girls. And it seemed that Maria moved to Texas, had children at an early age, and sort of had a life of being caught up with the wrong man.
Looking for love in all the wrong places.
Yeah, this is kind of a sad,
and that is part
sad story.
Cyclical generational trauma, I think. Always turning to the worst person for you for whatever reason.
While he was in custody for the statutory rape, police searched the rented trailer and found a .38 caliber revolver in a box. They also found a .25 caliber handgun and a clip. There were also some drugs inside the trailer. Under his parole terms, Timothy wasn't supposed to have firearms. So after 2 days, he spent 2 nights in jail. He was finally able to bond out. On April 25th of 1979, the district attorney filed a petition to have him committed as a, quote, sexually dangerous person and have psychiatrists perform a battery of tests as to his mental conditions and whether he should be listed as a sexually dangerous person. Because this was like before they had the sex offender registry.
Right.
But they could label you as a sexually dangerous person.
So they would pay you more attention upon your parole and such.
Yes.
Right. So it was almost a precursor to them.
Yeah.
And you know what they should have listed him as? A recently castrated individual. Yeah. And that would be the end of that.
During one of his therapy sessions, Timothy stated that he enjoyed sexual relationships with 13-year-olds because they were easy to manipulate and made him feel more masculine.
Yeah, that's not healthy. That's not okay to do that as an adult, bud.
No.
Yeah, okay.
His abuse of other women was acting out anger toward Fern, his mother, and he used violence to punish those who made him feel sexually inadequate.
Why do you think that's a very common thread a lot of times with these individuals? They have these issues with women, relationships in general. Oftentimes, ED's involved in some point of their contact with women. And then if, God forbid, I think maybe at first, even for these guys, some woman made fun of him or something, and he just fucking went off and killed her or something. I don't know. It's weird, right?
Yeah, there's a...
You think it's so because their brains...
I'm not going to say there's a lot of that in true crime, but it is a bit of a trope that we've heard before.
Right.
Got the mommy issues, the mommy hatred, sexual impotency.
Yeah, but then I get fully hard when I strangle you to death. I mean, it's weird. Right? It's just fucking weird.
Can I continue?
I'm sorry.
After 16 months, his attorneys asked that he be released because now Timothy was able to control his sexual desires and chronic violence. His evaluation stated that Timothy's recidivism to commit more violent crimes was minimal. Despite opposition, Kracjir was released from prison on June 4th of 1981. One of the stipulations of his parole was that he had to return to Southern Illinois University and finish his degree in criminal justice.
Yeah, because now you've seen it from the one side. Won't you try it from the cop's side?
In December, Kracjir graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Administration of Justice, along with a minor in psychology. Now, isn't that rich?
So this guy could be in a position of power in law enforcement now.
Well, not with his criminal record.
Okay.
But maybe in an abstract universe, yes.
Okay.
But no. Yes, but no, Dylan.
He'll have the degree, but no one's going to...
Well, yeah.
He's not going to get past
I was
dispatcher.
going to say who's going to hire this guy. In August of 1977, Brenda Parsh flew from Wisconsin to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, where her parents lived. Her father had been hospitalized and was recovering from a surgery. Floyd Parsh had recently suffered a heart attack, which was a condition prevalent within, his family. Brenda was born June 28th of 1950 to Floyd and Mary Parsh. She was beautiful and popular, Dylan, becoming a cheerleader in high school. She was crowned Beauty Queen in a pageant in Cape Girardeau. She had goals to work in the fashion industry and moved to Wisconsin to take a job as a fashion buyer for like a big department store
Okay.
chain or whatever. Mary Evelyn Parsh was born April 13th of 1919 in Alton, Illinois. She married Floyd, and together they had 2 daughters, Brenda being the youngest of the couple. Mary was known as a very loving wife and mother. On Friday, August 12th of 1977, Mary Parsh left her husband at the hospital and went to pick up Brenda from the airport. Floyd Parsh said after his wife and daughter failed to show up at the hospital, he called the house. He said Brenda answered but seemed upset and distracted. She said only, "I love you, Daddy," and then hung up the phone. It was the last time that Floyd Parsh would speak to his daughter. After 3 days without a word from his wife or his daughter, Floyd asked a neighbor to check on Mary and Brenda. The neighbor stumbled upon a grisly scene at the Parsh house. Brenda and Mary were found lying face down on the master bed with their hands tied behind their backs. They were both nude. Upon further examination, it was determined the women had suffered gunshot wounds. Their bodies had been in the house for 3 days in the summer heat without air conditioning, and they were already partially decomposed when they were found.
Could you imagine
No.
this scene when you come through the door?
No.
I mean, it's
It's
just...
like an attack of the senses.
Yes.
It's-
You know it would be.
The horrific smell,
Oh, my gosh.
the heat,
You have a baseline for that smell.
the visuals of finding this mother and daughter
The insects
brutally
already.
murdered. I mean, this is,
The heat,
not a good scene.
the accelerated decomposition in just a short time, 72 hours.
Authorities believe that the killer must have known the victims. Floyd was hospitalized, so obviously he's quickly eliminated as a suspect.
Be like, he done snuck down some bed sheets down from floor 3. I seen it.
A small caliber slug was recovered from the head of Mary Parsh. Although the house did show signs of pilfering, nothing of value was taken. The keys to the house were still in the front door lock, suggesting the women had been surprised by the intruder as they entered the home. The assailant wore a blue bandana covering his face, and only his eyes were visible. He expected Mary Parsh to return. The 58-year-old wouldn't be able to put up much of a fight, but he had not anticipated a more physically fit Brenda. Like, he did not know this would be an issue.
Yes.
His plan was to subdue the younger woman first so she couldn't fight back. After tying the women up, Kracjir forced Brenda to perform oral sex on him. Then he sexually assaulted her while the woman's mother lay next to them, being scared and helpless.
That's got to be a certain kind of horrible evilness.
Yeah,
Making a
that's
mother
not-
making a loved one watch the other one be brutalized. Jesus.
It's not normal.
No.
Okay? It's not okay.
It's not. No, it's horrible.
It's one of the worst things that you could do.
It really, those home invasion movies and stuff kind of like mess me up.
Yeah, I don't like those.
Like, it's just very scary because it
is
can
very
happen.
scary.
If 4 or 5 truly motivated people come in your door at once, even the biggest, baddest person typically is going to be overwhelmed very quickly. Oh my gosh.
It's very scary.
Oh God, I'm scared. Jeez.
Afterwards, he shot Brenda. There's no telling what thoughts raced through Mary's mind in the moments before she was killed, too. The intruder shot the pillow that Mary's head was resting on, but failed to actually shoot her.
Really?
Instead, he went into another room, rifling through belongings. And when he heard the woman crying, he returned and shot her again. And this time he was successful. So she had some moments of maybe fleeting thoughts of, I'm going to be okay, or he's left me alone.
Maybe they're leaving.
Yes.
Only for him to come back.
An investigation revealed that the neighbor had heard gunshots around 11 p.m. on Friday night. Police concluded robbery was not the killer's motivation. Nothing in the women's background suggested motive. I mean, there were no steamy secrets. The women had no known enemies. So, of course, that makes leads dry up, right? Because
that's how leads work.
you don't have any secrets. You don't have any enemies. Like, who would do this? And the women, by all accounts, were really well liked by everyone who knew them.
So not only do they not find an obvious person with a problem with them or had a recent argument, people loved them.
Yeah,
right?
so everyone
They were
was
beloved.
just shocked at this kind of crime. Detectives initially suspected that Brenda's ex-boyfriend, a guy named Richard McGaugan, whom she had broken up with before moving to Wisconsin, might have been responsible. McGaugan was grilled for more than 10 hours, shown the horrific crime scene photos, which nearly made him physically sick, and he was denied a chance to speak with an attorney during questioning. Police used every tactic to elicit a confession, including playing the good cop, bad cop, and telling Richard they had a murder weapon with his fingerprints on it.
So they're lying. They're, keeping an extended interview and keeping them going for hours on end. Refusal, I think, they violate his rights.
Well, they did.
And it's really dumb when these over exuberant cops in these cases do something like this because he could be the suspect.
McGaugan had been living in St. Louis with his brother and had spent Friday night there. His brother, along with 4 other men, were present at the home on Friday because they had had a meeting where they were discussing an upcoming weightlifting competition. So he had a solid alibi. He's got multiple witnesses who've seen him at home, and he even agreed to take the lie detector test and passed it. No evidence linked him to the crime, and he had this solid alibi. So, of course, police are going to move on to the next potential suspect, which is also a pretty loose. They have a pretty loose connection to this guy, but they're going to go with it.
Yeah, they're like, hey, look at that guy over there. He's got his rights. Let's go. Let's go get his rights.
Why are you laughing at me?
I'm not laughing at you. I'm not laughing at these cops because they browbeat this dude and he had solid alibis and shit.
So there were also these rumors that Brenda's brother-in-law had possibly made some inappropriate advances towards her, right? He was interrogated too, but with little success. McGaugan actually moved to New York City to pursue an acting career, but eventually got involved in drugs and alcohol. He also was, in a way, a victim of the perpetrator's actions in the Parsh home because of this experience. He went on to become a drug addict and an alcoholic.
He had post-traumatic stress.
He had some serious, issues.
That was
not only did this woman that he cared for was brutally murdered, but then he was a prime suspect and being interrogated, looked into.
Hardcore interrogated.
I mean, that's got to leave a mark.
Yeah.
On somebody.
Yeah, because you're not. I feel really bad for people who police kind of latch onto and falsely in the beginning of investigations and falsely put all the heat on them because they're not even they don't have room to mourn. They're lost, be it a loved one, close friend, or whatever, and you're just being attacked this way and scared and threatened. I mean, it must really suck.
And they're shoving crime scene photos in your face.
And then when
you have to look at these images of someone you care about.
and then when they walk away, they're like, whatever. You're lucky if they just leave you alone. But they're just like, oh, okay, fine, we'll go over here. No accountability because of, whatever what is it, the something immunity. Just because I'm acting as a police officer, you can't personally sue me or whatever, hold me liable. Yeah. Anyway. They're dicks.
Whatever it's called.
They're dicks, and they get away with it.
Floyd Parsh eventually succumbed to his heart condition and never knew who murdered his wife and daughter. Investigators wouldn't make an announcement in solving the case until 2007.
Oh, my God.
So we'll get back to the Parshes, but we got a lot more story to tell, Dylan.
It's qualified immunity. I had to get it out.
Just 3 months later, a student at Southeast Missouri State University was found dead. Her body discovered at a rest stop on Illinois' Route 3. Fully clothed, she was found face up with 2 gunshot wounds to the head. A motorist made the discovery and phoned the police. The woman had not been sexually assaulted, nor had she been robbed. Sheila was born on her name is Sheila Cole, by the way. She was born September 15th of 1956 in the Crestwood, Missouri area to Harold and Naomi Cole. She was a 1974 graduate of Lindbergh High School and was attending Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau. She was studying zoology and chemistry, planning to enter graduate school to study marine biology the following year. The night before her body was found, Sheila had dinner with her boyfriend and then told her roommate she was going to Walmart and Schnucks, which I'm assuming is some type of store maybe in the Midwest.
Oh, Schnucks.
Schnucks.
I want to write that commercial.
No, no one knew. I can't get it out of my head now, Dylan.
Aw,
Schnucks.
Schnucks.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yes.
So no one knew why she was Illinois or how she came to be in a different state.
Okay.
From Missouri, from her homeland, right?
I'm guessing a vehicle.
Oddly enough, Cole resided on Sprigg Street in an apartment which was across from the police station and by the rehabilitation center where Floyd Parsh had lived temporarily after his release from the hospital.
Oh, my God.
Cole's Blue Nova was found in the Walmart parking lot. Like the Parsh women, Sheila was liked by just about everybody. Those who knew Sheila best described her as a conservative young woman who followed safety protocols. She was the type that was always reminding her friends to lock the doors.
Okay.
Don't talk to strangers.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch you go in your apartment.
The hall monitor.
Yeah.
Great friend to have.
Yeah, I'm totally the hall monitor friend. I've always been.
Okay, everybody, she leaves no hoe behind at the club.
I do not.
She's everybody on the bus. We're leaving.
I don't know what you would do without
Do
me.
you have
Dylan.
your things? Do you have your stuff? Do you have your phone? Did you get your card from the bar?
Yes.
Did you cash out?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Do you need to go pee-pee?
Yes.
Wash your hands. You're sticky.
This is like the checklist I have to go through with you when we're leaving.
I know. People thought
a
it was
place.
my 4-year-old granddaughter. No, that's for me.
No, it's Dylan's checklist.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm good, mommy.
I know. I feel like you I feel like you
Dicky.
married me because you really just wanted a mom. Because I feel like I'm your mother sometimes.
Well, you know what?
I didn't sign up to raise some middle-aged
No,
fucking
it's-
45-year-old man, bro.
It's not that bad. But you
It's
know what?
that bad.
It's not.
You are so lucky that I love you.
But I love you too.
Because you aggravate the shit out of me. You are like a little child. And you know how I feel about other people's children.
At least I'll behave at the brewery. I don't want to get kicked out.
You behave there.
Yeah.
That's debatable.
No.
Yeah, just wait for some old time rock and roll to start playing. Dylan slides across the floor in his socks and boxers.
Get the music off
I'm
the
like,
shelf.
bro, it's 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's the only time you can get down to the brewery. They close at 8.
Stop drinking the pale ales. Okay.
These Trulies taste so good.
So not only was Sheila described as this like very conservative young woman who followed these like safety protocols and was very cautious in her life, but she also spent her money very wisely. I mean, she had the budget. She was doing the damn thing, Dylan.
I'm still not good at that.
And her friends were like, she's like the most mature of the group. She's like got her shit together. There's no way she would go off with a stranger unless forced. But her case quickly went cold after they found her body. Police tried to link the Parsh murders to Cole's case, but they found no overlaps or ties. One of the investigators told a newspaper reporter at the time, quote, "That was just about the same time as that Son of Sam prominent in the newspapers, and maybe that triggered something. If we have a true psychotic here as well, he might strike again."
Oh my gosh.
So they were comparing this to the Son of Sam murders, which is pretty interesting.
Well, yeah.
It was a really big case at the time.
Yeah, I know.
6 months passed after Sheila Cole's murder when another crime happened nearby. On May 12th of 1978, David Witt discovered the body of his wife, Virginia, around 1 p.m. in their home, which was located in Westernaire Estates.
Wow.
She was lying in bed nude with a kitchen knife protruding from her chest area. The Witts were an upper-middle-class couple. David had worked for GM, but was operating his own financial investment firm. Virginia was a stay-at-home wife, and the couple had 2 adult sons. Just days before, the Witts had returned from a Colorado trip where they had visited with one of their sons and a brand-new granddaughter. So just got to see the new grandbaby, and then tragedy strikes.
That's sad.
It is very sad. That morning, David had gone to lunch with a friend and then ran a few errands. While he was eating lunch and hanging out, his wife went grocery shopping. And they had taken separate vehicles, but they made plans to meet up that afternoon at home. The groceries were still on the kitchen counter, which suggested that Virginia had been attacked upon entering the house. The knife was from the Witt's kitchen. Nothing was missing from the home, including Virginia's expensive jewelry pieces. The autopsy would reveal she had not only been stabbed, but also strangled during the attack. Neighbors were stunned that a crime like this could be committed in this quiet, upscale neighborhood.
Now, would you think this was like an intent, someone out to get her, this murder? Because, I mean, this is random violence, but...
In a, like this quiet, upscale sort of estate type of neighborhood, yeah.
Right.
I mean, you definitely would think that this had to
was
be someone who knew her. This
targeting
was a
her.
targeted attack, that this was not just a random act.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, neighbors were just stunned, like something like this could happen not in my neighborhood, right?
Oh my God.
A composite sketch was drawn based on some witness reports of a stranger that was spotted in the neighborhood, and he was reportedly driving a late model white or silver car, possibly an Oldsmobile. A few days later, Timothy Kracjir's parole officer contacted police to say that the sketch looked eerily similar to his parolee. The car he drove was also like the one described by witnesses.
Oh my gosh.
Upon investigation, police discovered that Kracjir had not come to work on the day of Witt's murder. Now, what's really strange, Dylan, is that despite having some latent fingerprints that police tested, Kracjir did not match these and was eventually dropped from the potential suspect list.
His fingerprints did not match.
Did not match.
Oh my gosh.
No solid leads developed from the mountains of evidence, and eventually the case went cold. Later, one of the officers would say he thought serial killer Anthony Lorette was responsible. Lorette was operating at the same time with the MO of raping and strangling women, and eventually he would be executed in 1995. It's always strange to me when you have these cold cases, but there's multiple serial killers potentially operating in an area.
Overlapping.
So one murder could be connected to this guy, but you find out there's actually 2 serial killers.
Yeah.
I mean, we just discussed this on our Patreon episode. We have our Patreon movie club, and we watched the serial killer capital Baton Rouge. And it was the same kind of situation. You had all of these victims being discovered across Baton Rouge, women.
Well, when they find one victim and discover another victim while they're looking for the one,
Yeah.
that's when you know you got a problem.
Exactly. And then it's not only one serial killer, but you find there's multiple.
Oh, there's 9
operating.
bodies out there. Shit.
So, yeah.
Y'all
And
quit
it's always,
looking. We're running out tags.
It's always very strange to me. 10 months later, or after Virginia Witt's body was discovered, another murder would take place in Paducah, Kentucky. Paducah, Kentucky was founded by William Clark of the Lewis and Clark fame. Did you know that?
I did
I
not.
didn't either. In 1827. It was located at the confluence of the Ohio and Tennessee rivers. Paducah was a prominent supply chain junction during the Civil War and had a long history before with the Paducah tribe and the Chickasaw Indians.
Why do I imagine the locals in Paducah have like a chip on their shoulders? They're like, I'm from Paducah, bitch. What?
I don't know.
I know it. I'm not saying they're bad. They're really proud of being. I mean, it makes me proud when I say
Just
the
to
word.
say it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll be like, I've been in Paducah all my life.
Why do I feel like this is just weed talking, Dylan?
What are you talking about? That's weird.
Well, it's weird that you would say that Paducah makes you excited. Okay. Joyce Tharp was born in 1950. She had a sister and 3 brothers. Growing up in Fulton, Kentucky, which only had about 5,000 residents, Joyce's father was a mechanic at the Oldsmobile dealership, and he also mowed lawns for extra money. Her mother was a cook and a local beautician. The family was poor, but Joyce never went without food or shelter. The Tharp family had each other, and they cherished their time together. They lived in Joyce's grandfather's house alongside aunts, uncles, first cousins. So they had like a multi-generational household. All the kids stayed together in one room. And because they were African American, the Tharp kids were often reminded that though the schools were integrated, they didn't belong. Yet Joyce managed to make plenty of friends and even played on the softball team. She was academically successful and enjoyed music like Marvin Gaye, and she loved Southern gospel music. Joyce was accepted at Southern Illinois University. So she goes off to college and things are going great, but then she becomes pregnant. Her daughter Debbie was born, and unfortunately the child's father completely ghosted Joyce and the baby.
Well, that's not nice.
So she's left as a single mom. But she forged on, Dylan. As a single mom, she went to class, she worked, she took care of her baby, and she graduated and got her degree.
And I applaud her.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy.
No, it's awesome. And after graduation, she went back to Paducah, where she got a job at Union Carbide. Joyce struggled as a single parent and eventually asked her parents if they could help care for Debbie. Now, on March 23rd of 1979, during the wee morning hours, someone broke into Joyce's apartment and threatened her with a knife. The assailant kidnapped Joyce, drove her across state lines to Carbondale, Illinois. Joyce was taken to this trailer where she was sexually assaulted. Afterwards, Kracjir strangled Joyce to death. A floral delivery man who was working early morning hours discovered Joyce's battered body discarded in trash cans near the Park Avenue Baptist Church in Paducah.
Okay.
Joyce's autopsy revealed not only had she been strangled, but also she had blunt force trauma. That she'd suffered a very vicious beating.
Just torture.
Yes. It's monstrous.
I just don't know how you could keep on another human like this.
I don't know.
I mean, it's truly is evil.
The broken window at her apartment indicated that the person had forced his way into the house.
Okay.
But the evidence led nowhere. Joyce, again, she had no known enemies, very well liked, very popular, had a lot of friends. People in town really loved her.
Everybody knew her.
Yeah. So the case went cold, and police eventually had to move on to some other crimes. So she becomes a cold case. In April of 1979, Myrtle Rupp was on a 3-month medical leave from her nursing job at the Community General Hospital in Reading, Pennsylvania. Recovering from a foot surgery, Rupp had worked 28 years at the hospital and was now the supervisor of obstetrics and gynecology. And this lady is like well known. She's just a powerhouse at the hospital.
Yeah, she's an institution.
Yeah, for real. On April 10th, Myrtle had spent the evening with her mother. They went shopping about 6:30 p.m. and returned 3 hours later. When they go inside the house, they notice shards of glass from the front door. So someone's broken in the house. And that has to be really terrifying.
Oh, yeah, it's the scariest thing.
The women tried to call police, Dylan, but they realized the phone cord had been cut.
Again,
So again,
it's terrifying.
Scary. Yes.
Oh my God, it's like a movie.
Instead, we take for granted that we have cell phones nowadays. But back in the day, like your phone, your house line, your landline was like the only means
Yeah.
to communicate with the world.
And it was not hard to find that telephone cable on the outside of a house and cut it. And then when you go to, you hear somebody creeping around, you go to grab your phone, just a dead. Nothing, no dial tone.
Scary.
That'd be so scary.
I want to apologize. I still have some kind of crud. I don't know what it is.
It's the crud.
Because I did go to a doctor eventually, found out I had bronchitis, went through my round of steroids and some kind of weird fake cough medicine that they gave me that didn't work. And I'm still sick. So it's all sinusy and like chest cold, and I can't shake it. So
Yeah.
I have horrible vocal fry, and I sound very nasally, and I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay, honey. Everybody understands that why you sound stupid. No, but on a serious note, I told Heather the other night, I was like, isn't it funny that like in Houston right now, there's a bunch of kids getting drunk off codeine cough syrup and like some, Sprite, and you can't even get an ounce of it prescribed to you, and you've coughed your head off for like 7 weeks now.
Yes.
And it's the only thing that would just turn your cough off and you would get relief. But nope, no scissor for you, baby.
But if I was partying like a rock
You could buy
star,
a
I
whole
could
bottle,
get some.
bud. Yeah, on the street.
Man,
Isn't that funny?
if somebody's got some lean out there, sell it to me just because I'm fucking sick, bro. I need it.
She needs the lean so she can't cough.
Oh, right.
Oh my gosh.
This is just my life now. I'm just chronically congested and sick, I guess. I don't know.
It's the crud. It could be like a scary 1950s sci-fi movie.
The
Coming
crud.
this summer.
Yes.
The crud.
Ooh, and what if it just looked like a big green slimy booger like the blob?
And everybody just starts
And it
coughing.
creeps, but it comes like it injects itself into your nasal
Oh,
cavity,
God.
and then you
You're part of the crud.
You get part of the
It has a
crud.
hive mentality.
Yeah.
Can we write this script?
And then you start oozing mucus out of your orifices, and then you become a big booger too,
Ooh.
right?
Okay. Yes.
What do you- yeah.
That transition, I like it.
Check mark.
I think we should do
Okay.
practical effects. I think this could be fun.
Yeah, I would like a movie with there's just like a big crusty snotty booger like eating
But
me.
mama, the buggers is coming to get me.
Exactly. We could call it the snot, the snotting or something. The snotting.
The earlier was telling me about that movie that was coming out, The Fucking. And you said it was going to happen. It was going to be premiered later.
Shut up.
It's true. I told her, the wind would be like blowing across our crotches. It'd be like, The Fucking.
Look, that was
this summer.
Dylan, that was a private screening. Shut up.
2 crotches.
Okay, enough. Instead, phone lines cut. They decide to go to a neighbor's house, see if they can use the phone. The Huey household was next door, whatever, but they knock. Unfortunately, the Hueys were not at home. So the two walked to a different neighbor's house, a guy named Robert McWilliams, and he let them call police and wait until law enforcement arrived. Nothing of value was taken except for $15 in coins. An empty soda bottle and a cookie were found on the kitchen table and in the bedroom, as if this guy had just been walking around eating snacks in the house.
Okay. Again, can I say,
That's creepy.
criminals that walk around people's houses and like take showers and just hang out and don't have just that timer in their head, like I gotta get the hell out of here, scare me. It's just really creepy that they would sit there and have like lunch and stuff after they've killed somebody, That's just really.
Or they're just like walking around your house eating your cookies.
Yeah, it's like that's almost even
That's
salt on
gonna
the
piss
wound.
me off. Better not eat my last cookie.
Like I know he's not eating that double stuff.
That is my cookie. What the hell?
Everybody knows those are Heather's cookies.
Somehow we've accumulated like 3 birthday cakes or like 3 cakes this week.
And I don't see the problem.
So
What's the problem here?
I was just gonna say, and can I trade some of the cake in for cookies?
I think that's a fair.
It's a lot of cake.
That's a fair offer.
It's a lot of cake.
Okay.
Several days after this incident, Myrtle was still feeling uneasy. And who wouldn't? I mean, you have a prowler in your house. You're single. You live alone. That's scary. She had the glass replaced at the home, but she didn't get the locks replaced. She had phoned the locksmith, and he'd come by, evaluated the doors, and tried to figure out what he needed. But he was like, oh, it's going to take me a couple of days to order what I need to replace the locks. So she never did get her locks changed. And about a week later, on April 17th, an emergency call was placed. A man told law enforcement that there was a dead body inside the Rupp house. Myrtle was found lying face down, nude across the bed with her hands and legs hogtied.
Oh, my God.
Rupp's autopsy revealed strangulation and sexual assault. The neighbor, Mr. Huey, had grown concerned about Myrtle and went to check on her because he hadn't heard from her for several days. And this was alarming because he and his wife had a really strong relationship with Myrtle where they were like checking in on her regularly for the past 7 years since her husband had died.
Right.
Because she's an older lady, she's living alone.
They're neighbors and friends.
Yeah, and they cared about her. So they were really concerned, and that's when Mr. Huey found her. And
oh my God.
It's really sad.
It's terrible. That's very ritualistic.
Right?
To that. I think with the when you go to posing and a certain way tying, hog ties I've always thought it's a very vulnerable way for a human position for a human to be in, completely helpless, honestly. And I don't know. You're not going to get me to the hog tie. You're going to kill me before that.
Police were able to develop a probable timeline of Myrtle's movements leading up to her death. But again, no suspects. Myrtle's case, like the others, went cold.
My gosh. So it's a professional, it's not some bumbling criminal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is someone who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. But again, he studied psychology, criminal justice.
Yeah, I know.
So he knows the ins and outs of how this works. And he's been in trouble multiple times.
I don't know
So he knows the process and how police are going to interrogate you, collect evidence. Yeah.
So I don't know what parole board was like. And by the way, you seem to be a very violent offender. You need to go back and finish your criminal justice degree.
Oh, right.
This is what's going to make the world safer. Okay? And we know you're probably not going to get a job, but you'll at least know how cops work.
Yeah.
And what they look for now.
The second best major for him would be maybe working with children.
Yeah. and a minor in what is it? K through 12 education?
Early childhood
development
or something.
Yes.
Yeah. July 14th of 1979, a woman called police to report that she'd been sexually assaulted 30 minutes earlier. Robaline Carter was in a state of shock when law enforcement arrived. Carter had been asleep on the sofa in her living room when a strange man awakened her. The attacker was wearing a blue bandana over his face, but she knew he was a white man about 5'8". She said he was holding a rake that she'd left out in the yard.
Oh.
The assailant told her he only wanted sex and that he didn't want to kill or rob the woman.
Don't make me rake you.
Okay, Dylan.
I'm sorry. It was right there.
Okay, buddy.
Go outside and wait till you're called again.
He informed Carter that it was actually her 16-year-old daughter he was after.
Oh, my God.
But Denise was babysitting at the time. So thankfully, Denise wasn't home. The attacker told her you can choose oral or anal sex. And then afterwards, she noticed the phone cord was cut and had to call out next door where her brother was the next door neighbor. So she calls across for him to come help. And they get the police on the phone.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, very scary stuff. Shortly after the attack, Marcia Carter moved along with her 3 children into Robaline's home. Marcia's her older daughter. It was crowded with 5 children and 3 adults. So she's so terrified. Her older daughter moves in, brings the grandbabies. And so now they got a full house. But wouldn't you want a house full of people?
Yeah.
I mean, because I can't imagine having you wake up to something like this.
No.
It's so scary.
I was thinking earlier about molestation victims and rape victims and survivors of various sorts. It's a life sentence to this trauma. It just never stops affecting you, right? And it's horrible.
On December 28th of 1981, Marcia Carter called police to report that a man had broken into the house and sexually assaulted her. The man forced Marcia to perform fellatio on him. It was very similar to the crime which had happened to her mother a year and a half earlier. So he's going back to the same house. I mean, that's...
The same house? What
the same house.
Oh, my God. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's... I was like waiting for a reaction. I mean, bro, that's... crazy, right?
That's beyond crazy.
To go back to the same place?
No.
The same victims?
Oh, my God. I would shoot him. I would have had a gun by now. And dogs. I would have had a pair of dogs.
Marcia, who had just returned from the grocery store, was changing her baby's diaper in the living room. She was sitting on the floor when this man busted into the house. The police report noted that the house was sort of dirty, seemed in disarray, and smelled bad, but they didn't necessarily attribute that to the robbery.
Oh, that like it may have been in that state beforehand.
Right. I took it as like maybe they couldn't really tell, like, has this place been
ransacked because it was already trashed.
Yeah, like, has someone robbed you? Because it seemed like it might have just been in disarray. So I mentioned that only for that reason.
This is my filing system. I know where everything's at.
The man asked for money, but Marcia told him that she didn't have any. But she did say he was wearing a blue bandana over his face and surgical gloves. The phone line was cut again. Afterwards, Marcia called out to the neighbor for help, but his phone line was cut too.
Oh, shit. Now, see, he could even see in the news reports of the aftermath, she ran to the neighbors and was able to call for help, you know? So he could be evolving.
Or maybe he knew she called out to the brother, the neighbor next door.
Well, yeah, or whatever. So that's fucked up.
I mean, but it's fucked up.
You go to the next door neighbor to get help and call, and their phone line's cut too? What the fuck?
A pubic hair was discovered during the examination, along with one of the surgical gloves, which had been disposed of outside of the house. So, I mean, they do have some physical evidence here. After returning home, Marcia would just stare in a catatonic state and often scream out. I mean, she like really struggled with the PTSD, the aftermath of this incident.
Yeah, and that's
attack.
Terrible, and that's so sad. And she could struggle daily with it.
Yeah, I mean, it described the book I read is called Predator, and it described this poor woman just staring off and just
like almost catatonic,
screaming. Yeah, I mean, that's really so fucking sad.
It destroyed her.
A man named James Hager, who was the only white man known to the family, was investigated previously for Robeline's attack, and he was once again questioned about Marcia's rape. Now, they had no evidence linking him to the crime, but they didn't have really much else to go on, and this was the only white man they knew, and the attacker was white and maybe around the same height, so they're just really kind of pulling straws here.
They're throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Just trying to help these women. On December 28th, James passed a polygraph exam, and they were able to determine that he had a pretty solid alibi as well. And then another suspect emerged, and his name was Malcolm Hicks. There was no reason to suspect him other than he matched the description of the attacker, and he kind of lived near the victims. But in the end, his hair sample didn't match.
The pubic hair sample.
Yes.
Because they were describing the attacker as like being basically wrapped up and all you can see is his eyes. Mm-hmm. You think he's doing that for hairs and such?
Maybe.
Because he does have this criminal justice knowledge and,
Well, he's covering his face.
He's covering his face. Surgical gloves, typically. It's really dumb to drop one because you can end up with a fingerprint on the inside, right? Mm-hmm. And DNA. Certainly contact
of course, at this time,
DNA.
He's not thinking about DNA. This is the early 80s.
Well, that's true.
The fingerprint, absolutely. Then on January 9th of 1982, Ann Shares, a single 34-year-old mom who worked for the Division of Family Services. Shares was a black woman, and she was really well educated, and she had this reputation for being kind and liked by all. She lived in a very safe section of town, a middle-class neighborhood. Her 10-year-old daughter, Missy, went to school only about 6 blocks away. She's, again, really well-liked, lives in, like, a nice neighborhood. not the kind of area where people think, oh no, I'm going to be attacked in my home.
Now, I wonder what I'm trying to think from a criminal or killer's perspective in these ritzier neighborhoods, the benefits. Do you think people kind of have their guard down because they don't expect violent crime?
Maybe. Well, Anne left for work at about 10 till 8, and she left Missy behind to wait for the school bus. Missy would usually kind of wait by the front door, and the bus stop was just across the street. So when the bus pulled up, then Missy would cross the street and go get on the bus every day. Anne worked till about 4:30 most days, so Missy would be home for up to 2 hours by herself. Now, Anne worried about leaving her young daughter home alone in the afternoons, but as a working single mom, she felt like she didn't have much choice. On this particular evening, it was around 8 p.m., a man burst into the house and held a gun to Anne's head. He raped her and forced the woman to commit multiple sexual acts in front of her young daughter.
God, that's terrible.
The assailant told Anne not to call police, that he knew where Missy went to school, and that if she reported him, he would be back to take care of them both.
Well, I mean, some people might be like, oh, but you've just been violated by this person. No one stopped them then, right? It came out of nowhere. So why would you not believe that they would come back and hurt you again? I mean, honestly.
Anne didn't know what to do. After the man left, she was so scared. She didn't want to call for help because she took his threats very seriously. Instead, she called her brother Ben, who came over. Together, they agreed reporting the crime to police was the best option. Ben told her that if she didn't report the rape, nothing was stopping the man from returning again and again.
Well, yeah. I mean, but it's good to reach out to her brother, get someone there to support her, right, and help her calm down a little bit. And I mean, you're making this huge decision under duress.
By 10 p.m., law enforcement was on the scene. They took Anne to St. Francis Hospital for examination. Semen was found on a coat which showed the assailant had an A blood type. The coat belonged to Missy. Other items such as Cher's clothes, bed sheets, and several crumpled up pieces of paper were taken in by police as well. Detectives thought the same person might have committed the Carter rapes because it was a very similar attack.
And this was the best reason to report it, to get this physical evidence, taken in. Police have it now. And I think at that time, they could only tell, like with the semen, they could tell if you were I always forget what it is, a secretor or non-secretor. And that would represent so many, percent of the population either way. Or just like blood type, basic. That's about all they had going, right?
Yeah, that is. Now, the man had been waiting out on her porch, and when Anne had gone out to dump some mop water, he pushed his way in. He told her, quote, "I've been watching you for several weeks. I know that you used to live on the corner. I know you moved here several months ago. I know there's not a man around."
Oh, my God. How scary would that be to be told as someone's pushing their way into your house?
I've been watching you.
Yeah, and all that's true that he's telling you. Oh, my God. That's kind of fucking me up. I'm sorry.
The perpetrator seemed to know the layout of the house. He pointed the gun at Anne and Missy, ordering them to go upstairs. Inside Missy's room, he made them get down on their knees and put their heads on Missy's bed. Anne had a hammer in her bedroom, and she tried luring him in there, but he told her, "We're going to do things my way." But at least she's like, because in that moment, the panic's setting in, but at least she's thinking,
I need to do something.
Of proactive ways to defend herself, defend her child.
See, man, and how old's her child?
I think I don't remember. I forgot. 10?
This is so scary, but you almost have to fight because this is not going to get better when you get tied up. That's the way I'm always going to think about these situations.
Anne told police she had been assaulted 5 years earlier. She and her daughter had left a Walmart store. Again, we've got the other Walmart case.
Yeah.
And here's a second Walmart. So it seems like, okay, the guy's doing the same things.
And he's been watching her.
So she said that she was at this Walmart store when a man with a gun forced them into a car. He drove to a secluded spot where at gunpoint Anne was forced to perform oral sex. She thought it happened sometime in November of 1977, but she was too afraid to report it. Anne never realized or suspected that the crimes might have been committed by the same assailant.
Oh my God. This returning to victimize again. I mean, I don't know. I've never even seen anything quite like that. Not just the same neighborhood, but the same freaking house. The same people.
It was like something out of a horror movie.
Come back and do it again. That's why you gotta take this son of a bitch out.
Oh, he deserves it.
You gotta fork him in the eye. It don't even matter what whatever.
The Cape Girardeau police took a lead that Anne had offered seriously. Anne had been married to this man named Bill, and because she said the assailant reminded her of him, they were about the same size and both were soft-spoken. Maria Carter had also been employed at the same place as Bill. And his real name is William Isabel. So you got these two victims, know the same guy.
Okay.
The ex-husband and then a former coworker. Now, another woman who had reported being raped, her name was Valerie Shetter. And she was employed alongside Carter and Bill.
Really?
Right.
All these victims have ties back to Bill.
Which is, yeah, that's a weird coincidence, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, after a minute, it doesn't seem like a coincidence. It
Right.
seems like evidence.
An FBI profiler named Schaefer wrote a report based on the individual that he thought was responsible for the rapes of Carter and Shares. He said, quote, "The perpetrator would commit crimes near his home or his work. Attacks preceded by conflicts with women in his life. He might suffer from sexual dysfunction and is an angry, retaliatory rapist. The subject likes to degrade and punish the victims."
I think that's a fair assessment, don't you?
And though there were all of these coincidences with Bill Isabel, it turned out he had been living in Florida at the time of the attacks, so he was ruled out as a suspect.
So it just happened to be a guy that everybody knew because it's a small town.
Yeah, but
Right?
still,
Fucking
it's-
Bill, dude. He probably like hangs out, buys everybody a beer and shit. Super good at pool.
Oh, he's good. He's a pool hustler.
No, he just shoots it and tries to talk shit to the ladies.
Okay.
Always drinks Red Label Budweiser.
You know, it's like you know this guy.
Everybody knows this guy.
Marjorie Call had worked at Woolworth for over 40 years. She married in 1947 and cherished her family. For Marjorie, family was everything. She had 2 sons, and by all accounts, her life was a happy one. On January 27th of 1982, Marjorie's daughter-in-law, Sharon, had an appointment in Cape Girardeau and noticed that Margie's car wasn't parked out in front of the Woolworth store. Marjorie had failed to show up, and her manager was trying to reach his reliable employee. So we've got the daughter-in-law and the manager concerned about Marjorie's well-being.
Who's always on time, just like Ja Rule used to be.
Yeah, exactly. Now, after several attempts to reach Marjorie, the manager phoned her brother Albert. After being unable to reach his sister, Albert was equally as worried and drove over to the house. Albert noted the house looked empty, but used his spare key to gain entry. Margie was discovered naked, lying face down on the bed with her hands bound behind her back. A rag had been stuffed into her mouth, and she had ligature marks around her neck. A bathroom window pane on the south side of the house had been broken in. A rubber surgical glove was found outside this window on the ground. The woman had died from strangulation and suffocation. A rape kit was also performed on the victim, and they found 2 unknown pubic hairs. A semen stain on a pillowcase determined the perpetrator had type A blood. A detail which was kept private from the media was that Marjorie had a missing nipple, Dylan.
Oh my God. When are they going to catch this monster? I don't want to hear about it anymore until I get him.
He's like escalating.
He's fucking Jesus.
His level of like depravity
He's
is
a demon
escalating.
on earth. He's getting these women in these positions where he can take time with them. I mean,
He's a sicko.
it's
He's such a sicko. Robbery was ruled out because nothing of value was missing. With no motive, no real leads in the case, like the others, it remained unsolved. Call's family was increasingly frustrated, but so were investigators. Because this guy, I mean, he's a piece of shit, but he's like crafty.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he knows what he's doing. And I think it's through the casing the victims for an extended period of time, right? Learning their schedule, routines, all that.
Don and Gary Call, Marjorie's sons, considered taking the law into their own hands.
Yeah.
Don suspected a food delivery driver who made rounds to some of the victims through his job was responsible. He considered breaking into this guy's apartment to get hair samples since DNA wasn't a thing yet. I mean, he's like, he wants this solved. It's his mom. He's desperate, you know?
No, I understand, but that's obviously not a good thing to do. Try to recover someone's hair from their apartment.
Well, no, not at all. But I'm just saying, like, that kind of desperation.
Right.
I think a lot of us could understand being passionate if it was our loved one.
Well, and he could be onto something. For all we know, if this food delivery driver is known to have connections to multiple of the victims, as far as, I don't know.
On April 25th of 1982, 3 women were having some drinks and listening to music. What was supposed to be this kind of light-hearted evening turned dark. Mary Lacey and Geraldine Drake went to visit their friend Ethel Smith at home. Drake brought her 2 children along to play with Smith's 2 children. Smith didn't have a phone in the house at this time. So around 9:30 p.m., Drake calls the Cape Girardeau Police Department to report a man had entered the South Hanover home with a gun, where he proceeded to rob and rape the women. The man reportedly wore a blue bandana over his face.
I don't know. I got to attack this guy. I'm sorry. I got to attack this guy. I'm going to take one for the team, okay? You guys come in behind me, down to the 6-year-old that was in the back he didn't know about. Come out there with some little small knife so he could really get some speed with those little hands, sticky hands.
I want to headbutt this guy.
I want to headbutt this fucking guy.
I want to headbutt him.
I want to hack him in his crotch with a machete.
Yeah.
A dull one, but that's still sharp and rusty. I want him to get some very intense infections.
The rear porch had a screen door which had been cut through. The kitchen door was unlocked, so once the assailant entered in through the screen, I mean, it was pretty simple to get inside once you cut that screen and get in.
Well, our home here has big windows on the bottom level and like all the rooms, and like we have a patio and all this and asphalt drive. You could just step through these windows. They would not be hard to climb through, right?
Thanks for saying that.
Well, well, you can go ahead and step in here if you want because I'm in here.
Okay.
Yeah, and Heather will call the police on you.
Well, I'm just thinking about that is really like if your back door is unlocked, that all you'd have to do is get through the screen.
But yeah.
I mean, that's scary.
Well, yeah, screen, there's no security there.
The women were traumatized and embarrassed, changing some of the worst details of the story later because of the degradation that was involved. Despite the crimes against the 3 women, little evidence was left behind at the scene, and there was no motive. The bandana rapist was getting away with another heinous act.
3 victims.
Panic spread across the Midwest and surrounding areas. Fear was escalating as more rapes and murders went unsolved. On the evening of May 17th, 1982, Eunice Seabaugh reported a break-in to the Cape Girardeau police. Eunice and her older husband, her elderly husband, Elza, were listening to music in their living room. Elza had left the front and back doors unlocked and had fallen asleep in his chair. Eunice looked up and saw a stranger standing between the kitchen and the living room door.
Okay, I know how
Which
this
is scary.
I know what this guy's doing in this neighborhood. Because for one thing, when I said earlier, a pro of this type of neighborhood for him is maybe people let their guards down because there's not a lot of violent crime or anything around. Because you can't get away with that shit in the hood. Him stalking people and lingering shit. People in the hood be like, who the fuck's this dude? The old guy that comes to the corner every day. I mean, everybody's going to see you down there. But anyway, there could be like wood lines behind these nice homes. He could be moving, traveling through because also a con of the neighborhood is people know you don't live there. People do notice more when there's a car that doesn't belong in the neighborhood, in their opinion, right? Nosy neighbors, security, even maybe possibly. He could be moving through the wood lines and doing his stalking and stuff and not actually driving around on the streets. Sorry.
Well, this man attempted to rob the couple. He was holding a gun. Elza pulled out his little pocket knife and threatened to cut the assailant's throat, but unfortunately cut his hand in the process of opening the knife. The assailant asked how many phones the couple had, and they were like, well, we only have one, so he cut that line. The assailant then ordered the two to lie face down on the floor, and he rummaged around their house looking for more money. After a few minutes, Elza defiantly got up and went into the bedroom to get a shotgun. By now, the robber had gone. Eunice went to the neighbor's house for help, but like the others, the couple describes this similarly built 5'8", kind of small, wiry guy.
Fully covered, basically.
Wearing a blue bandana over his face. So around $131 was stolen, but also a 1922 silver dollar from the Seaballs' home.
Not her grandfather's silver dollar.
The Seaballs were fortunate because they didn't experience sexual assault, and they said the man's demeanor was mild, like he didn't really want to hurt them, and that he seemed almost kind of like nervous, scared.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be the gentleman killer. I'll be like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Unfamiliar latent fingerprints were lifted from Elza's wallet. However, their lives are forever changed at this point. I mean, they've gone through this. I mean, even if they catch him, they've gone through this terrible experience of being robbed in their own home.
Well,
You know,
yeah.
like that. How do you forget that?
That's terrible. You'll never feel safe again in your home where you're supposed to feel safe.
No, the couple eventually built a 6-foot perimeter fence around their property.
There
They
you go.
got several large dogs and started obsessing over locking the doors. Elza, he felt overpowered and like he was unable to protect his domain, which caused him to suffer from some self-esteem issues.
It's terrible.
Eunice changed all the furniture in the house and rearranged everything because she said, quote, that she resented him knowing where we kept things.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's so sad.
I mean, that's terrifying.
No. That's horrible. Just what she said there is impactful.
It
Just
is.
him knowing what my house looks like on the inside. I'm not okay with that.
Mildred Wallace was a single successful woman. Folks described her as classy and elegant. All the same things they say about you, Dylan.
It's true. And she seems, game recognizes game, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's just like me.
She was also a pillar of the community.
Again, a stalwart of honesty.
Cape Girardeau.
I would always go, every time I had to say that. So
Her captivating beauty was like the thing everyone noticed first. So everyone who's been interviewed about Mildred was like, oh, she was absolutely beautiful, stunning, just gorgeous woman. She was president of the Business and Professional Women's Club, along with other memberships in the Executive Club and the Zonta Club. After Marjorie Call's murder, Mildred organized a civic group to provide safety for women who lived alone. It was a neighborhood watch type of program, Dylan. They had a buddy system that they created so that the women could like check in on each other.
that's a good idea.
And like if you wanted to go someplace and felt unsafe or felt like you needed to have a buddy, they would hook up and go with you. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great way for people to connect to maybe other people who's had similar experiences, know what they feel, how they feel, and to just support each other.
On June 21st of 1982, a call came in from the Marquette Cement Company, where Mildred had worked for 33 years as an office manager. She had not shown up for work that day. Mildred always showed up by 7 a.m., and it was unlike her to go without calling. Mildred's sister and niece were contacted because they were her next of kin and decided to check in on her. When they arrived at Mildred's home, the outer storm door was locked. So they had to use a spare key to get into the house. And they ended up finding, I guess, that the spare key was not the correct one. Like, she thought she had a spare key. So they're trying to get in the house. They ended up finding a hubcap nearby and had to break down the door with it.
Oh, wow. Damn. So there's just this random hubcap,
Yes.
and it's hardy enough to beat the door down with it.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, they're just determined to get in the house, Dylan.
I see. I want to see this more. I want to know more about this hubcap.
Well, I think it just shows that they're really concerned about Mildred, because she doesn't skip work.
No. And when that happens, people
I mean, if you're willing to beat down a door with a hubcap, you mean to get into that house. You're worried about your loved one, your person.
You said Mildred's worked at the concrete cement place for 33 years. She's probably like never ever missed a day. Or if she did, it was a big deal because she never misses a day and she let everybody know what was happening. Everybody knew her plans. You could probably count on this woman every day, day in, day out.
The house was quiet, and in the bedroom, the woman found Wallace sprawled across the bed, lying face up. Her hands were bound beneath her back, and her head was lying over the edge of the bed, bloodied. The carpet was stained thick where blood had pooled. The red dress she had been wearing was hiked up over her arms and shoulders. Plenty of physical evidence was gathered at the scene. Police determined that the intruder had entered through a bathroom window at the west side of the house. The glass was broken and shattered across the floor. There were Band-Aid wrappers on the floor, showing that the person had cut themselves climbing through the window and had taken the time to bandage up their poor little cut fingers.
Oh, don't leave blood all over the place, you piece of shit.
Type A blood drops were found in the bathroom. Several footprints were discovered from a Sears brand tennis shoe, which I didn't know Sears had its own brand.
And Sears had everything
shoes.
Back in the day, dude. They were a behemoth, right?
It's true.
It's true.
Sears and Hobuck. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yes. So I didn't know Sears had a brand of tennis shoe, but anywho, they have this shoe print.
That's nice. But this is great. This is more evidence.
No, absolutely. And it makes me think of Richard Ramirez and how his shoes gave him away.
In his stank-ass mouth.
Well, that too. The house did not appear to be ransacked. Money was missing from Mildred's purse, but that seemed to be the only thing taken. Mildred had been shot in the right temple of her head. She didn't have seminal fluid in her vagina, but there was some on the bedspread under her legs. It would also be identified as having type A blood.
Right.
It was determined that the weapon was likely a .38 special using a Winchester 125 grain bullet. Bootlaces were used to bind the victim's hands, and they were similar to the ones used in the Virginia Witt and Deborah Shepherd murders. The knots were tied in the same fashion as well.
Very ritualistic.
Well, it seems like it was, someone who knew knot tying, because it wasn't like a very basic knot. It was a more, intermediate, type of nautical knot.
It's a knot you're not going to get out of.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's not just over the log and through the bunny's ears.
Well, and the way the ropes were tied, they determined it was by a left-handed person.
Interesting.
I know, right? Police were finally realizing that the murders in the area might be linked to a single serial killer.
Wait a second. Didn't you say they had a victim over there was tied behind her back? Huh. That sounds a lot like our victim.
You're goofy.
You reckon they could be connected?
Due to the lack of movement in solving the cases, rumors began to circulate that the killer was a member of law enforcement and being protected by Brothers in Blue. Investigators couldn't ignore this and even began looking into their own people for the murders.
Well, as investigators, they have to notice that this guy is not bumbling around. He's cunning. He's methodical. He plans it out. He is... How many cases have you went cold in the first 48 hours?
He's leaving no trace.
So, I mean, they should, as good investigators.
He's stalking his victims.
Think.
I mean, this is a guy who's putting some planning into these crimes.
Wait a minute. Maybe it is one of our own or someone who knows police procedure. Maybe he's been ordered by the parole board to get said knowledge.
There were similarities in the murders of Wallace, Call, and Parsh, yet police didn't want to totally rule out that multiple suspects might have committed the crimes. Because they just don't have that smoking gun, so to speak, right? The women were all around the same age. Brenda Parsh had been younger, but it was theorized that the killer had not anticipated that she was going to be at the home when he attacked. Remember, Mom had just picked her up from the airport.
Right.
All the victims lived in these middle-class neighborhoods. The assailant had waited in the homes for the women to return and had left them, partially or fully nude on a bed. So a lot of similarities. I mean, if you're an investigator, these are things that are definitely going to raise some flags. Like, hey, this could be a serial killer.
Now, wait a second. What'd you say about your case? Well, that sounds a lot like the case I'm working on. Huh. You guys want to get lunch?
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Not long after Mildred's body was found, Kracjir returned to Pennsylvania. 2 days before she was killed, Timothy had his parole transferred to Pennsylvania and started staying with his mother, and then eventually moved into a trailer park with his half-brother.
Okay. Cousins, nephews.
Yes. Kracjir was never particularly close with his family, so no one had really thought much of his behavior, which was spent mostly cruising the streets of Allentown alone.
Yeah, dude. That's like an 80s movie.
Some Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah,
right?
totally. And some,
Wind blowing through your hair.
and you're just innocently wearing bandanas and you get accused of being the bandana killer. You were just trying to live your best life.
Numerous sexual assaults in the city earned some unknown perpetrator the nickname the South Side Rapist. One of the attacks occurred on December 30th of 1982. A man broke into Mariah Simpson's apartment on South Church Street. The telephone line into the apartment had been cut, and only a living room sliding window was unlocked. So again,
It's the
unlocked
same
window,
MO.
Yeah.
Wait a second. You reckon these cases could be connected? They're exactly the same.
Mariah's
Fuck.
18-year-old daughter, Darlene, woke up around 4:30 a.m. to get a glass of water. When she returned to her room, she said a man with a gun was standing by her bed. He made the girl undress, and then he sexually assaulted her.
Oh, my God.
She struggled with the assailant, who threatened to kill the mother and her 6-year-old brother. This commotion ended up waking Mariah up. She tried to call 911. When the man discovered her on the phone, he forced her into Darlene's bedroom, where he made her undress. The only physical evidence that was left behind at this crime scene was a palm print on the window.
Okay.
But that's a
That's
good clue, right?
That's great. I mean, it's good as, fingerprints.
The women were able to give enough physical description, and police had a sketch artist make up one of those portraits, Dylan, and they printed it in the local newspaper. Now, this prompted another woman to call in and report an indecent assault. Georgia Johnson was loading groceries into her car when a man matching the sketch came up behind her in a parking lot and grabbed her buttocks.
Man, this guy's out of control, dude.
But she was able to get into the car and drive away before anything further happened. Yeah, no cooling off period. He's wild
No.
out there.
No, it's just
This
the
is
whole...
just dangerous.
Yeah.
No self-control. After several sexual assaults and rapes, people in Allentown were growing more vigilant. They were calling in tips to police about mysterious vehicles in their neighborhood, if there were unfamiliar faces lurking. I mean, Community Watch was on high alert.
You know how many they got? I think my ex is the rapist because they're pissed at him. Or I think my boss is the rapist.
I wonder.
They do get those. They get a lot of those types of things. Just because people's like, man, fuck you, dude. You could be the rapist. Because I said so and I don't like you.
1 week after Johnson was assaulted in the parking lot, a woman named Deborah Moyer called Allentown police to report that a 4-door Plymouth parked at the outer area of the Mountainville Shopping Center was looking suspicious. And this is weird, Dylan. She was like, I'm watching the driver cover the license plate with some masking tape.
Oh, yeah, that's going to catch your attention.
So this officer arrives at Moyer's home, and because she's like in her house, but she can see this guy at the shopping center, and she's been watching this sketchy behavior. And good thing, what do they say? See something, say something.
See something, say something.
So when the officer arrives there, she starts pointing out the suspicious vehicle, and the officer's kind of like watching him. Well, then the man starts to drive off. So officer jumps in the cruiser, guns it, blue lights him, pulls him over. Got him, Dylan.
Yeah, okay. Is this really him?
What do you think? So once pulled over, the officer could see a .25 caliber handgun in the man's lap.
Okay.
The driver was Timothy Kracjir. He told the officer that the gun wasn't legal and was immediately arrested.
Okay. Jesus.
Got this gun in his lap in a parking lot. Like, he's up to no good.
Putting masking tape on his fucking license plate, dude.
Fucking creep.
Nobody does that for a good reason.
The NCIC background check revealed that Kracjir had a lengthy criminal history. And because of the violence associated, he was not allowed to own a firearm. The gun charge landed him in the Lehigh County Prison in Allentown.
Okay, felon with a gun.
Felon with a gun, Dylan. The NCIC background check revealed that Kracjir's criminal history included violence, so he wasn't allowed to own a firearm, as I mentioned. And during the interrogations, Dylan, Kracjir didn't admit to being the Southside rapist, but eventually admitted to attacks on Mariah and Darlene Simpson, as well as Georgia Johnson.
Oh, okay. So he didn't admit to all of it, or being the actual Southside rapist, but he did admit to multiple crimes.
He did.
Multiple attacks.
Not only was he slammed with that firearm charge, but also robbery, burglary, trespassing, theft, receiving stolen property, aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, terroristic threats, and indecent assault.
Yeah, and nowadays he would be let out in 24 hours.
Well, this catch and release BS that they're implementing across the country is not helpful, for sure.
Well, I mean, on the one side of that argument, you have that it's basically a debtor's jail. People on the low end of the scale are the only ones who can't come up with the bonds. You do have people sitting in jail for $200 or $300, all they need to get out. But some of these people should be sitting in jail. So that's the give and take.
Well,
of
a
that.
person like Kracjir definitely needs to be behind bars.
Well, I think you can do catch and release. Okay, if you get me and I have no violence in my history or none of that, and it's just I look like a fairly regular citizen, if you will, yeah, maybe I should be let out without a bond. I'll probably show up at court. But if you get a guy like him, Kracjir, with a horrible criminal history, he's admitting to these rather significant crimes, violent, maybe he should be kept. Why can't they just do a case by case? Why does it have to be a blanket thing for all the criminals?
Well, that's not the case, Dylan.
Yeah.
He's going to jail.
He's going to stay there.
Kracjir was assigned a public defender named Moyer and pled not guilty to these charges. Moyer filed pretrial motions to suppress the statements that Kracjir made during questioning, claiming that he was searched without probable cause and that he was not given his Miranda rights. Yet the motion was denied. Moyer then filed for an incompetency exam. While incarcerated, awaiting trial on May 1st of 1983, Kracjir, along with another inmate named John Grello, escaped.
Heather searched me last night without probable cause in the bedroom.
I always have probable cause.
Oh, my God.
I know you're up to something.
Damn.
You always look guilty.
Did you find what you was looking for? Yeah.
Ew. Why are you always going to make something weird?
It's not weird,
make
baby.
People feel uncomfortable.
It's love. Okay.
It's not. However, Kracjir fell off the roof trying to climb down from the jail and landed atop a parked car, then rolled over into the driveway.
It's like something out of a movie, right? He lands on a car and like the windows blow out and he rolls off the roof.
His leg was broken during the attempt.
And that's why you shouldn't try to escape. It's not safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I think about him just being like, oh, and falling off the roof,
yeah,
hitting
and then
a car,
and like
then
groaning
just rolling,
and rolling off
and
into
then hitting the pavement again.
and then staying there.
Yeah, like, oops, I broke my leg.
My leg's broke. Can you guys get me some help?
Stupid. Law enforcement agreed that Kracjir and Grello managing to escape together could have been very, very, very dangerous because they would have been a deadly duo. Grello had a reputation for being a violent, indiscriminate killer. So imagine that kind of personality, just a complete psychopath, dangerous, doesn't care. He'll hit you if you look at him wrong kind of guy.
Yeah.
Teamed up with a guy like Kracjir,
Oh,
who's
yeah.
a bit more criminally sophisticated,
Yeah, he would take this bull
but equally as psychopathic.
and direct him, his energies.
Yeah, so it's really a good thing that this escape did not work out. And as far as I know, Grillo was captured a few days after the escape.
Well, they're a type of duo who escape from jail, and they do recover them after 3 or 4 days, but they've already killed 5 or
But
6
they've
random
been on
people.
like a crime spree.
Yes.
A violent rampage.
Carjackings, home invasions, whatever.
Yes. Yeah, and we know Kracjir has a history of home invasions.
And we know what he's going to do when he gets control of someone and be with another monster like Grello. No.
Kracjir's exam was conducted by Dr. Paul Gross, who determined he was, quote, cold, detached, and devoid of normal emotional attachments. He exhibited no remorse or empathy for victims. Kracjir admitted that he transferred angry feelings for his mother onto other women. Gross recommended imprisonment with psychiatric help, including medications. Yet Gross let the courts know he did not believe this would be an effective method of controlling Kracjir's behaviors. There was also experimental hormone therapy at the time being used to subvert the sex drives of those deemed sexually dangerous.
So they were dosing them with estrogen.
And that
I'm
is
gonna
what
guess, right?
Gross recommended for Kracjir as well, this experimental hormone therapy.
I would think it would be a big shot of estrogen into these alpha male criminals,
Possibly.
right?
I didn't look too deep, Dylan.
Yeah, that's interesting.
In July, Moyer and Kracjir changed the plea to guilty. Kracjir was sentenced to 5 years in prison and would serve the full length due to his escape attempt. The judge ordered continued psychotherapy and treatments as part of the sentence. Kracjir was sent to the Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution in Graterford. By 1988, Kracjir was released to the state of Illinois for the parole violations there, like the gun.
So he's released into their custody so they can take care of that.
Yeah. So he was entered into the system as a sexually dangerous person, finally.
I've been referred to that a time or two.
See, you make these jokes, Dylan, but it's not really funny.
Okay.
Because he really is a sexually dangerous
Well,
person.
he's
He's committed horrific acts.
He's
I
a
mean,
fucking piece of shit. He
this-
should be shot in the
okay,
head.
this is maybe not the time to be making jokes.
Okay.
So
duly
he
noted.
served a sentence from 1989 to 2007 when DNA finally linked Kracjir to the murder of Deborah Shepard.
Finally.
Technology is finally catching up to this guy.
That's what's scary. His criminal history has spanned such an amount of time. Literally, there's been...
Well, at this point, it's been, 40 years
Yeah.
that he's managed to get away with these terrible, terrible crimes.
I mean, it was hard even listening to you recount those crimes as you were going down the timeline. They were so vicious and so torturous to the victims. And the coming back, never knowing if they might, and you always having about, they might come back. They typically don't. Criminals come back to where they committed a crime. This son of a bitch would. And it's terrifying.
Yeah, he would repeatedly prey on the same victims. I mean,
Nah. I'm
that's
sorry.
just demented.
You come back after I've been violated or anyone in my family, you're going to come back to a different scene. You're going to come back to a damn compound with a perimeter fence, with a pair of dogs, big dogs, guns. It's going to be like one of those revenge movies where the people...
It's going to be like Home Alone if you come up in my house. Okay? There's going to be like Hot Wheels on the staircase, paint cans swinging at you.
Nah, my shit's going to be a lot darker than Home Alone. Yeah, it's going to be like I lock you in a fireplace and torture you.
Oh, yeah. Like, what was that? the Farrah Fawcett film. We were talking about that recently. I could not remember the name of the movie or
Well,
whatever.
the name of my version would be You Done Fucked Up.
You done fucked up. Fuck around, you found out. Okay.
You fucked around over there, now you're finding out.
While Kracjir was incarcerated at Big Muddy Correctional Center, investigators in Cape Girardeau were investigating the string of murders. One of the officers even looked at Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole as possible suspects. Yet there were no physical evidence to connect these men to the Cole and Parsh murders. Toole and Lucas were free men during the time of the murders, and investigators learned quickly they could have gotten confessions out of the men and cleared the cases easily because both Toole and Lucas would admit to anything.
They were confessing to everything.
Yeah, like all you had to do is offer to buy them like a Hardee's burger, and they would be like, "Sure, I'll confess to 30 murders. What you got for me?"
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but these detectives were like, we could clear these cases, but we actually want to solve them. We want justice. We don't want to just assign blame to these serial killers who will freely admit to whatever. Yeah.
I think at first there was a bit of a frenzy around Otis and Henry Lee Lucas because they were like, my God, these guys are prolific. And they did, harm and kill plenty.
Yeah.
But I think quickly investigators started figuring out these guys are just kind of trying to build up their own legend and lore. And because they would always be missing like vital details of the crime scene, the victims, the murder.
They were both so gross.
And they were really gross.
Yeah.
So
I have to say that film, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, is a pretty disturbing film. Like, I remember the first time watching that horror movie when I was younger and thinking, wow, this is pretty fucked up.
I did not know that's what that was about. I've never watched it.
Yeah. It's
Really?
like loosely based on Henry Lee and Otis
I can
Toole.
see the guy who plays in it. I can see his face. But
Yeah, he's a great actor.
He is.
I can't think of his name. Is it like Michael Roop or something?
I've never known his name, but I've seen him in 50 films.
I know, he's been in everything. Michael Rooker is the actor
Okay.
who played Henry in Portrait of a Serial Killer.
I may screen that later.
You should. I mean, I think it's a really creepy movie. Back in Pennsylvania, Myrtle Rupp's case was close to being cracked. Investigators thought a man named Wayne Huey was the prime suspect, despite any evidence linking him to the crime. Huey's son-in-law, Sterling Lee, was subpoenaed and asked to take a polygraph exam. The polygraph determined that Lee was being honest when he stated that Huey had never made any admissions or incriminating statements about Myrtle Rupp.
Okay.
So again, they're just sort of pulling, suspects without it even having any real strong reason to think this person might be responsible.
Well, there seems to be
I mean,
community pressure to get something.
Really, want to get these cases solved.
Right. And so even when they're, it's like, well, maybe this guy did it. In their minds, it looks like they're still working the case.
I should also mention, because this goes back a little bit, but back in 1988, Kracjir began refusing therapy and stopped communicating with the therapist and stopped working with therapists.
That's not going to be an option if you're in jail for this shit, okay, bud? Either you do it or we're going to start cutting your fingers off until you agree to do therapy again.
Oh, damn.
I'm so sick of this shit. These kit gloves that we put on for these fucking monsters and assholes. I'm sorry. Once you're down that road so far, we don't treat you like a human anymore, okay? We're going to do experimental surgeries and medicines on you to further medical science. We're going to do things like spray hairspray in your eyes until you go blind. Now we know after 19 minutes of direct spray, you will go blind. Save a rabbit, right? These are the things we should do with these monsters.
The ACLU hates you, Dylan.
Well, the ACLU can suck my butt munch.
Oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, you go ahead and get some.
A butt munch. What are you, a sixth grader?
I was about to be extra vulgar, and I caught it in mid-sentence. I think that's a...
By 2007, a new cold case detective named Jimmy Smith was assigned to bring evidence up to date in order to meet modern forensic DNA technologies. By now, the cases were almost 30 years old. In August of 2007, the DNA in the 1982 Deborah Shepard case linked Kracjir to the murder. Smith was called the Dick Tracy on steroids detective.
Okay.
And he was not going to leave any stones unturned. The Wallace case was also a DNA match. So he's got these two open cases, 2 DNA matches to this incarcerated Kracjir.
All right.
Yeah. Both cases matched others in which the assailant was described as wearing a blue bandana with the same rape and murder MO in Missouri.
So these DNA matches alone are making a case against Kracjir for being the Southside rapist, right?
Well, and being a murderer.
A murderer, yes.
Finally, the report came in from the regional crime lab in Kansas City, Missouri. The Wallace murder, the bootlaces used to bind Wallace's wrists were similar to the ones in the Ann Shares and Virginia Witt cases. It was a similar type of knot tied by a left-handed person, which we've heard before.
Right.
That it was a bit of an unusual knot.
And they could tell it was tied from this
person.
direction. Yes.
We've got multiple reports of a blue bandana. Sounds like we got our guy finally.
Yes, definitely.
The DNA link was 1 in 980 billion. The palm print left behind at the scene was also a definitive match.
Yeah, many people don't realize your palm print is distinct to your, just like your fingerprints.
Detectives fully believed that Kracjir was responsible for the Parsh, Cole, Call, and Wallace cases. On November 14th of 2007, Carbondale police arranged an interview with Kracjir. The FBI and state police agencies in Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Missouri, and Illinois were also examining unsolved rapes and homicides. In the Virginia Witt case, Kracjir became a person of interest, and 4 large boxes of physical evidence were submitted for forensic testing. Investigators began digging into 3 unsolved sexual assaults that had occurred between March through June of 1982, also as linked crimes.
Now, and also, if there's no other attacks, well, you have this guy, you know where this guy's at. He's incarcerated, and you have control of him. That's a pretty good sign that you might have your guy, too.
In May of 2006, cold case detectives submitted evidence for DNA testing in the Myrtle Rupp case, but it did take 9 months to get a report back from the lab. As we know, it does not move as fast as what you see on TV. People always assume, like CSI, they have their results in 10 minutes. It's not like that in these state crime labs. With autopsy reports, DNA testing, it can take months or even years to get that back.
Yeah.
Sadly.
I don't understand why there's not more money put into that system by our local and federal governments.
Yeah, I don't know why we, the people, aren't demanding that there be higher budgets to clear these cold cases
and these rape kits. Yeah, because every time they're like, well, we finally got the funding, or it's raised privately often by the family or the the lawyer who wants to do it, and boom, we got a hit. Look at that. All we had to do was put it into the system. Yeah. Or all we had to do was get this tested this certain way. That should have us all in the streets rioting, demanding, before you send another dime to any other country or outside of this country for any reason, we're going to address this at the federal level with our tax dollars.
We should.
We're going to clear all this, clear them all. Even if you have to build a new fucking mega facility somewhere in the middle of the damn Midwest or something.
Well, I know about 1,200 unemployed mill workers that could run your facility.
I'd love to test these. I'd be like, I got that son of a bitch.
Semen-stained bedspread was analyzed and entered into the CODA system. And guess what, Dylan? A hit came back.
It's crazy how that works.
Timothy Kracjir. A current DNA sample from Kracjir was needed to make the match conclusive. So that's when detectives decided to visit him in prison to get the sample. However, they would have to wait in line because investigators from 2 more law enforcement agencies were also trying to get at Kracjir. It is all starting to crumble down around this man.
Yeah, and you go strap him down to a table. We're not asking for your DNA, buddy. We're taking it. And I would just cut his arm off. I was like, here's your sample. And I would just cut limbs off and give out to the investigators. Here, go DNA this.
During the interview with Jimmy Smith, Kracjir said he could not blame his activities on drugs or alcohol. He said, quote, "I've been twisted since I was a little kid. I can't blame it on anything else. The first 6 or 7 years of my life, I was left alone too much, and it twisted me. It just got worse as I grew up, I guess."
Yeah, it got worse.
During the interview, Kracjir denied involvement in the Ann Shares case. He also refused to acknowledge his involvement in the Wallace murder until being presented with the palm print evidence. in which he responded, "I don't want to talk about it."
You got me.
Kracjir remained tight-lipped. He seemed resigned to the fact that he was going to be executed. Kracjir was done talking and told investigators he was ready to face whatever charges came his way. Detectives tried to appeal to his sensitivity that these families could finally get closure, but Kracjir didn't budge. I mean, again, this is a guy who has zero empathy. He doesn't give a fuck.
He doesn't care.
He don't care about other people.
He doesn't care. Now he's finally, it's all come tumbling down. He's having to, face consequences for his actions, and he's just not good at that.
The prosecuting attorney was willing to make a deal with Kracjir, taking the death penalty off the table if he would confess to his crimes, but only if all of the surviving family members agreed to this.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So finally, on December 3rd of 2007, after the deal was in place, Kracjir finally began singing like a canary, like the little birdie that he is.
The little ship bird.
Exactly. He first confessed to his involvement in the Ann Shares case, explaining that he'd been out of prison maybe 8 or 9 months, had a failed relationship with a woman, which prompted him to rape again. He told investigators, quote, "I said to myself, the first good-looking gal that comes up there by herself, I'm going to assault."
I mean, just knowing that there's a human being out there
With this mentality is disturbing.
And I don't doubt that the next, what he deemed attractive woman that came along, he attacked her. There's no doubt about it.
Well, that is when Ann Shares, along with her 10-year-old daughter, were in the parking lot, and he spotted them. Then he honed in on Shares. So he's admitting to all of this. With the promise of no death penalty, Kracjir confessed to 9 murders, multiple sexual assaults, robberies, and just physical assaults. He said that he didn't know why he chose the victims, but he was more likely to kill women who reminded him of his mother, explaining why he chose elderly women to murder in many cases.
So you let him do all this. You're like, yeah, you got your deal, man. We got you a nice little cot back here. It's going to be cozy. We got your little color TV. And you get him to give all these details and all this information to the loved ones left behind, and then you kill him.
Due to a study of criminal justice, I will learn to speak today. Due to a study of criminal justice, Dylan, and psychology, Kracjir also knew what law enforcement would be looking for during the investigation. He admitted it was intentional to change his methods of murder from stabbing to shooting in order to keep police puzzled. Yet, despite everything Kracjir thought he knew about the investigations, DNA technology would eventually be his demise. Kracjir admitted it was just a matter of time before detectives came calling once he learned that DNA was readily available.
Well, yeah, they've been collecting this guy's DNA for years from these crime scenes, be it on the woman's clothing or the bedspreads.
Like, I've been sitting here in jail waiting for you guys to come.
Yeah, and he's seeing articles about this groovy new thing called DNA and how it's a
game changer.
100%. It really clears the doubt a lot of times. Yeah.
In December of 2007, Timothy Kracjir was convicted of the murder of Deborah Shepard and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He was sent to a maximum security prison and classified as a serial killer. He was sentenced to 40 more years in 2008 for the murder of Virginia Witt. He was then given 13 life sentences in Missouri for the murders of Mary Parsh, Brenda Parsh, Sheila Cole, Margie Call, and Mildred Wallace. Sheila Cole had been murdered in Missouri before being dumped in McClure, Illinois, which was approximately 6 miles over the border. He confessed to the murder of Joyce Tharp in Kentucky and was also charged for the murder of Myrtle Rupp in Pennsylvania. He did receive another life sentence in Pennsylvania.
Well, I like how all these municipalities are they're having the proceedings anyway. They're making it official, and they're doing every single one through court. And I appreciate that. Even after they could have said, well, he's already got a couple of life sentences, whatever. But I like that.
Timothy Kracjir is currently being held at the Pontiac Correctional Center in Illinois. Due to his 80-year Illinois sentence and his indefinite commitment as a sexually dangerous person, Timothy Kracjir does not have a release date. But upon his release in Illinois, he would be transferred to Missouri to serve out 13 life sentences. Some viewed Timothy Kracjir's arrest as a catalyst for many investigators across the country to re-examine cold cases using DNA technology.
Wow.
It was kind of a case that really sparked like wildfire, that like we can solve cold cases with DNA.
So
this is a technology
nice.
that's actually work, because in the early days of DNA, people still didn't quite understand it.
Right, you have to see it
and it was
working.
really difficult to explain to a jury
Yes.
what DNA evidence was, and you get a really dry scientist up there, and people just kind of
They start showing the picture of the helix
exactly
model.
But this was a case a lot attribute to, like, okay, this is a confirmation that DNA can crack these cases.
So it spotlighted nationwide how useful
Yes.
and how definitive.
And to
the evidence
end,
is.
I have a quote from Timothy Kracjir. He says, "I've been twisted my whole life. I feel sorry for what I did, but you have to understand I'm not like you. If I was like you, then it wouldn't have happened."
Wow. That's kind of creepy.
It is creepy.
Almost semi-self-reflective.
I was going to say, at least he's got some self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm a shitbird.
Hey, God drew me like this, okay? I've been shitting and birding all my life. And there ain't nothing you can do to stop about it. Stop me about it, yeah. Okay. He doesn't talk very clearly either.
He doesn't.
No, because he's a fucking shitbird. Oh, they should have did old crawdad his ass, old double cross. Killed him anyway after the fact. They should put him in jail with some guy who has problems too and let him kill him.
Well, you never know what his life is like behind bars, Dylan.
I don't. But the fact that he's breathing bothers me.
Yeah, he's definitely a monster. And I'm surprised when I stumbled upon this case. I mean, it wasn't exactly Appalachia, although some of the murders were committed.
Right.
In Allentown, Pennsylvania. We have the Paducah, Kentucky.
Paducah?
I just wanted to cover this guy because he's a fucking monster. And how do we not know more about him? Like, I'd never heard the name Timothy Kracjir until I stumbled upon this book and started researching.
Dude,
And I'm just blown away that there's not more information available on this case because it is a wild one. And it's very scary.
Scary's not really the word for it. I mean, honestly, you need a more serious word. I think it's terrifying. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying.
So one of my primary resources for the case today was Predator, a book written by Stephen Walker. There is also a book called Out of the Mouths of Serial Killers by Mary Brett, and Through the Eyes of Serial Killers by Nadia Fizani. Also, there are a shit ton of news articles out there, because especially relating to the DNA evidence solving the case, because in 2007,
Kind of relit
of course,
the fire.
everything was online. So a lot of the cases are about the DNA evidence and the forensic links that crack the case. But you can find some of the older newspaper articles as well.
This is even more reason for this to be a prominent story in true crime. So I'm blown away that you really did find this. I've never ever heard his name ever, and I think a lot of our listeners are probably in the same boat. And I mean, when you consider his crimes, they're horrific.
Well, a multi-state rapist and serial killer.
Yeah, and it spans decades. And then in the end, for this to spotlight this new technology of DNA and show how it can really help on these cold cases. I mean, that's a big deal too. And it's just funny how this kind of flies under the radar. So thank you for finding this in the dustbin and bringing us a wonderful story, even though it was terrifying and hard to listen to.
Well, I want to thank our listeners for slogging along with us. I know we've been out of the loop for a little bit. It takes Dylan and I a second to adjust to being back in the studio and on the microphone. Plus, we've been battling whatever allergy, sinusy, bronchial funk. So there's
This
that.
summer, 2 podcast hosts, the crud.
The crud.
They'll be snotting and coughing.
Yeah.
Can Heather get through an episode without being a mush-mouthed bitch?
The vocal fry is real. Yes.
No! Shing.
I know. This is just my life now.
June
I've just
26th.
concluded.
The crud.
I'll never be healthy again. It's
Okay.
been going on for like 3 months.
I'd like to thank our listeners as well. You know, this is things is getting real around here. And we are back. We did enjoy getting back on the mic. You guys may miss the content. We certainly miss making it when we are tied up with other things. But we feel like this transition is going to be good for the podcast. We think
Well, yeah, we're going to have more time and
Yes.
opportunity to bring more episodes to the table.
we have loads of ideas. If we could ever get them out there, we'll of course keep you guys abreast of any new information coming out of the MM studio. And thank you for listening. And our patrons, thank you from the bottom of our heart during this time of transition. Your support of the show has meant a lot to us. Thank you. We love you.
Yeah, if you have a case suggestion or want to drop us a line, email mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on the gram at Appalachian True Crime, and we are on Twitter at Mountain Murders Podcast.
We are.
And you can give us a follow there. All right. We'll
can
be back
follow us.
in a few days, Dylan, with a midweek episode. We also have some Patreon episodes. Our May Movie Club episodes
Yeah, we're
are
gonna be
now
banging those out.
being released. So that's something to look forward to. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.